I was watching this video from 2020. I think it was the Game Awards or it was the Summer Show Fest or whatever. It was from 2022. And then I happened to watch a 2023 version. And I saw something and I was disturbed. And I wanted to talk about it. This is Ryan over at Nintendo. Welcome to my channel. Let's talk about this disturbing thing that I saw. It wasn't, terribly, but I was watching the 2022. I think it was a Summer Game Fest or something like that. I probably should have looked before I took all these notes and I didn't write that down. But the one thing that I was noticing was like it was from 2022. Every single video game that they were talking about was this game of outer space, mutants attacking, shooting at the mutants, hiding from the mutants, trying to get out of the spaceship, trying to, or being in space, shooting at things while in space, shooting at things here. Then there was like the kind of odd, way away from this, where you might be having a sword and you are fighting in medieval times, which is a little more along the lines of games, that would kind of represent history. And then I watched more of these because I do artwork over here at my station, and I listen to these shows, get ideas of games that are coming out. And I watched another one. I think I watched whatever that version, whatever that show or that YouTube show was. I watched a 2023 version. Now it was a little better. But it wasn't that much better. It was a lot of similar games, shooting at this, shooting at that. Now, I'm not really into violent games. I used to be. And then I realized I just, it really didn't match my personality. So I stopped doing it. But I'm watching these things. And then I watch another one. And it's the same exact thing. And I'm like, what is going on here? So I started looking into it. Now, I had heard of this company before. It's called 10 Cent Games, right? I got my notes here, lovely notes, paper and a pen. And I wanted to look into what's going on. Why is this happening? This seems orchestrated almost. And so I started looking into this. I found this company, 10 Cent Games. Now I've heard of it before, but it was mobile stuff, and I don't play mobile games at all. I can't get into them. I started looking into it. They're worth $482 billion. They own 700 companies. Their market value is 562 million or billion. Sorry. Wow. Read here. 482 billion a year is their revenue. 700 companies they own. $23.5 billion a year they do acquiring of other companies. So I looked into it. What are these other companies? What are these other game series IPs that they have major stock in? Now, there was a lot of them. There was like a lot of them. I didn't feel like writing it down. Most of them I didn't recognize. I think it's largely because I don't play mobile games. And I know in China, Korea, and Japan, console games is kind of like done. Like they had their fill with it. They're mobile. That's why the Switch did so good in Japan. But some of the other, Monster Hunter Online, Pokemon Unite, Apex Legends, which I think is doing, I have no idea. COD Mobile, with Call of Duty Mobile. Contra Returns, I thought I saw that game in one of my reaction videos. And then they also own Discord, Roblox, Funcom, and this is just a few that I had heard of. Riot Games, Techland, Epic Games, FromSoft, and Ubisoft. Now, some of these, I think Epic was 40% owned, FromSoft is 16% owned, and I think Ubisoft is like 14 or 15 or 16% owned. That is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This is, little me preaching about this is not going to really change anything. But no wonder most of our games is the exact same formula. It's like Hollywood. It's the exact same formula. You've got the plot. The plot gets worse at some point. There's this moment of almost, you're just not going to, unovercomable moment almost. And then the overcomable happens. And this, every Hollywood movie follows the exact same script. This is what they do in every single movie. And this is what games are becoming. Now, I know the gaming industry is significantly smaller than movies. But it's getting to the point where you got these companies. It's out of China. Imagine that. And it owns so much. So I started looking into, so Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo own major systems. This Tencent Games likes to put $23.5 billion into acquiring other companies a year. So I wanted to look. I'm like, can they acquire some of these other companies like Nintendo or Sony? So I looked. Microsoft with their monopoly money, it's like, what? Is worth $2.33 trillion. So I don't think they're in any risk of being bought out by Tencent Games. But however, they could easily acquire Tencent Games. They could easily acquire Nintendo. They could easily acquire Sony. So there is that. In this, I listened to this Microsoft and was it Phil Spencer? And I'm like, man, these people acquire so many studios, but they never really put out any games. Like when you watch, I don't own Xbox. I never really was interested, but some of the stuff I can play on my computer. There was a couple of Atlas games that were going to be put on Xbox exclusive, but luckily I can actually play that on my computer. So I probably will do that. But then Sony is worth $103.06 billion. I'd like to just have the 06 billion. I'd be good with that. Nintendo is worth 53.6 billion or 8 trillion yen. Sony or Nintendo is not in what they'd like to spend at Tencent Games for acquiring, but that doesn't say they have the money. They have 482 billion coming in revenue-wise a year. I don't know what their expenses are. But I mean, Nintendo's looking like this is why I don't like public trading. I don't like it at all, like private games, because if you're a private game or a private company, you have to agree to these terms. But if you're on the market, they just buy your shares and they own you. And I don't like that at all. So I think this is why Nintendo shines so much more than the other ones. Now, if you're into a lot of role-playing games, probably Sony might be, this is why I own Sony, like all the PlayStations. And this is Xbox, really not my thing. But this is why Nintendo's so much different. They don't have a lot of this going on. They don't play the generation wars of having the most powerful systems. They just put out games that they think are going to be very entertaining. But how many more of these, and a lot of these indies are getting bought up. So these indies are having really good games, and then all of a sudden, I'm not really a huge indie fan, but I know a lot of people are, and they'll have these great games, and then they get bought up, and then they have a game that looks like the game, next to it. How much of this is going to happen before games aren't even worth it anymore? Like, how long is this going to happen before you don't even want to play games anymore? And I saw that, I forget what the engine is, but Unite or something. I think it's Unite. The engine a lot of these indie developers are using is raising their prices next January to this astronomical thing. It's been a huge thing all over the internet as far as video games go. Who knows if they'll actually do that, but that's actually going to start affecting some of these other companies. This is going to affect your Tencent Games. This is going to affect your Sony. This is going to affect your Microsoft. This is going to affect your Nintendo. So I don't know if this company is going to be able to actually get through it and live, to see the end of it. But how much of this is going to happen before video games are just the exact same game with a different cover? I mean, it's almost to that point. If you watch, I couldn't believe every single one of these. Even the people I was watching this this award or whatever it was, were like, man. I mean, every single game was out in space. Every single game was out in space and looking or to get out of outer space, or was getting attacked by some whatever, had guns and shooting everything like that. I'm not against, the shoot 'em ups and all that kind of stuff, but man, we need like 10 of them, 15 of them in 1 year, really? I mean, one doesn't suffice. I mean, these companies have to know that other companies are making this stuff. Like, do something different. You know, Starfield is a little bit different, but it's kind of the same thing. I doubt I'll ever play that game, but wow. I just wanted to voice my opinion on that. Let me know what you think about this down below. Have you found it to be the case that most of these games are kind of looking like the other games these days? Or, you know, I personally haven't really got into that because you don't have to buy the games. And if you have a Nintendo Switch or whatever the Switch is going to be when the new one comes out, chances are you won't have that too much because Nintendo really doesn't have a lot of that going on. But if you are a Microsoft or a Sony fan, you know, there's a lot of that going on. And these companies only care about money. You know, Nintendo obviously cares about money. But if you look at Nintendo, they don't have these bloated pay salaries like these other companies do. I think Miyamoto only makes like 2.4 million yen a year. I mean, that's not a lot of money. So, you know, Nintendo makes a lot of money, but they don't spend a lot of money on this, on their employees, which is, you know, good and bad, I guess. But so that means that they've got money saved up and they don't have to bow down to these, you know, constraints that some other companies might have to do. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this. I could not believe, and I know I've said this like 4 times now, I just could not believe every single game was the exact same thing. I was like, this is ridiculous. Who's going to buy this? And which one do you buy? You're not going to buy all of these. So which one's the best? You know? I don't know. Anyway, like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next one.